Good morning. It's the Kathy Gray Avatar one more time with your Sunday morning announcements. If you're with us on Facebook or YouTube, please subscribe to get notifications when we have new videos. If you're with us on Zoom, drop us a hi in the chat. We'd love to say hello back. And if you're with us in person, hello everybody here. And if this is your first visit, go ahead and sign the guest book either in the lobby or online at oakcliffuu.org/guest. Today, Renée Brill returns to the pulpit with Worship of the Written Word, or Governing via Memo, as we begin to wrap up the sermon series based on Tema Okune's paper, White Supremacy Culture, Still Here. We hope you can stick around after the service for Talkback, where we gather in a circle and discuss the sermon and related topics. Also after the service, at 11:15, we have Adult Religious Exploration with Sarah Rickey in the Charity Building, in person and on Zoom. Sarah continues with Building Your Own Theology, a class designed to help people define and better understand their own spiritual journey as well as others. The subject is Individualism and Community. What is the role of the church? And since it's the first Sunday of the month, there's more. Our White Accountability Group meets in the Hope Common Room and online at 12:15. If you're a white identifying and want to work on becoming true anti-racist allies, please join us. Then there's a worship ministry meeting at 2 p.m. Anyone willing to help us plan worship services or wants to see what goes into planning them is encouraged to attend. Coming up this week, the Widening the Circle of Concern work group will start meeting at its new time of 7 p.m. Central Time on Mondays. The group reports that work is continuing on how to evaluate the result/effect of the DEI workshop that's being developed. Please join us by attending the weekly meeting and or submitting your comments and suggestions via email at wcoc@oakcliffuu.org. Teamwork Tuesday is on for this week from 4 to 6 p.m. Your Sacred Spaces chairperson is already looking ahead to In-Gathering Sunday in September and seeing many areas of the campus that need some TLC. That's 4 to 6 p.m. this Tuesday, followed by a community meal. Also on Tuesday, the Coordinating Council will be meeting at 7 p.m. Ministry and committee chairs, mark your calendars. This Thursday at 7:30, our Social Justice Ministry Reading Group continues with Life's Journey, Zulia, Oral Teachings from Rosebud by Albert Whitehat Sr. The author is the grandfather of Stephen Silva Brave, who we met earlier this summer. Next Sunday, Sarah Rickey returns to the pulpit with Guided Meditation, Soothing the Mind. And then later that afternoon, it's the second Sunday Jazz Jam. Come play or sing or just listen. Info on all this and more can be found in the weekly e-blast. If you're not receiving the e-blast, and you should be, just sign up at oakcliffuu.org/e-news. We have 3 members with birthdays coming up this week. Happy birthday to Stephen Martinson, and to Phoebe Heil, and Tyler Pittman. And we have 2 member anniversaries to recognize. Joey and Joshua Heil joined UUCOC on July 31st, 2021. Great job bringing us that Norse winter solstice celebration last year. That's it for now. I hope you all have a great Sunday.
Welcome to the UU Church of Oak Cliff. Here, we gather in sanctuary where we're free to pursue our own unique and individual spiritual journeys in an atmosphere of acceptance, compassion, and celebration. We seek to build a community where what you believe is less important than how your beliefs guide and inform your participation in the world. Ours is a community that values the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. We welcome you. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm. to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of love, compassion, and forgiveness.
And now in Spanish. Que esta luz que ahora encendemos nos inspire a usar nuestros dones y poderes para sanar y no para herir, para ayudar y no para impedir, para bendecir y no para maldecir, para servirte a ti, espíritu de amor, compasión y perdón.
Our opening words for today, Multiple Intelligences Welcome by Dawn Shea Cooley. The diversity of the human species is astounding. The fact that we can gather together for common experience is nothing short of a miracle. Let us celebrate some of those differences. Let us celebrate those who worship best through music, for whom the Holy speaks through rhythm and harmony, pitch and meter. Let us celebrate those who worship best through the visual world, for whom the divine speaks through the aesthetics of a space. Let us celebrate the verbal and linguistic worshiper, for whom words and language, stories and poetry are sacred sources of joy and revelation. Let us celebrate those to whom the divine might be found in logical reasoning, in mathematics, and through critical thinking. Let us celebrate the intrapersonal worshiper, those who experience the holy as they listen to the still small voice within themselves. Let us celebrate those who worship best through their bodies, those to whom the divine speaks through movement and physical action. And let us celebrate the naturalistic worshiper, for whom the sacred is found in plants and animals, mountains and valleys, deserts and forests, oceans and streams. Today, may we find a way to connect with the ultimate, each according to our own ways of understanding and experiencing the world. May we bring our whole selves to this worship service and celebrate the diversity among us. In our community, we make time each week to share pieces of our lives with one another, our joys and our sorrows. We do this because each person in this community has value. Each person's experience matters. We share our sorrow with one another today, knowing that sorrow comes into each person's life, knowing that together we offer comfort. Please share your sorrows publicly by posting them in the Zoom chat or to our Facebook Messenger, or speak them aloud.
When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
We also share our joys with one another, knowing that joy comes into all our lives, knowing that joy calls unto joy, knowing that together our voices can rise in a chorus of celebration. Please share your joys publicly by posting them to the Zoom chat or send them to our Facebook Messenger or speak them aloud. Ours is a covenantal church, Latin for come together. Covenant means a solemn agreement or promise from the heart regarding a course of action between parties. The practice of promising to walk together is the core of our faith. Simply put, it is a guide for the behavior we expect from ourselves and each other. We are bound together by the promises we make to one another, and we recite our covenant during every worship service. Because we love one another, we honor each individual's spiritual journey. We celebrate life's abundance in service to each other, our community, and the world. We connect with each other in love, respect, and acceptance. Thus do we covenant together.
Porque nos amamos uno al otro. Honremos el viaje espiritual de cada individuo. Celebramos la abundancia de la vida en el servicio a entre sí, nuestra comunidad y el mundo. Ponemos en contacto a unos con otros en el amor, respeto y excepción. Así que hacemos pacto.
Good morning. I would like you to take a quick moment with me to ground yourself and to feel full and whole in this space, to know that you belong here, that you are welcome and that you are valued. And let's start with a deep breath in and breathe out. And breathe in and out. And one more time, breathe in. And slowly out. And when you're ready, join us here in this space where we're going to continue to talk about Tema Okun's white supremacy culture article, still here, where she describes all of the different characteristics of white supremacy culture. And I just wanted to kind of recap a little bit where we've been so far and where we're going. We have about it's either 3 or 4 sermons left in this series, which I'm glad that I will get to talk about something else, but I've also really enjoyed this series. One of the things that, and the main reason why we're using this article, is because when we talk about white supremacy culture, people don't realize exactly what the characteristics of that culture are. But when we go through and we start looking at the different characteristics, what seems very universal is that those things also, we have noticed that they are a problem. But what's missing is we have not specifically realized or heard before that those are the qualities that make up white supremacy culture. So this week, we're going to talk about worship of the written word. And here, we're not necessarily talking about the written word as literature, but the written word as like the correct documentation, filling out the right forms, bureaucracy, and things like that. Having the kind of proof in the exact format that we want it to be in of what it is that you're saying. And if you read the e-blast this week, a really good example of that does come from one of my favorite works of literature, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where aliens from outer space show up in their giant ship and inform all of Earth that it is going to be destroyed to make room for hyperspace, inner space, hyperspace, wormhole, something or another, intergalactic highway. And they come over the loudspeakers and they're sort of arguing with they come over the loudspeakers and we can kind of hear them arguing with whoever it is they're talking to on the ground. We don't hear the other side of the conversation. And what they say is something along the lines of, what do you mean you didn't know we were going to come blow you up today? We've had our plan to do this on such and such other planet, and that's less than a light year away from you. Why haven't you figured, why didn't you know that? Why didn't you make a protest before now? It's way too late. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and blow you up now. And I think that that is a fairly good example of how the written word is often used as a weapon against people of color, against oppressed communities, against people with limited resources, especially. And it is one of the things that I find absolutely aggravating and infuriating. All of the paperwork that goes along with being an adult person is extraordinarily frustrating. There's a couple of other examples that we can have of this worship of the written word. There's the examples of, we've adequately informed you because we published it in the newspaper that you probably don't order anymore because nobody reads the newspaper. They use online sources, or we put it down on paper in City Hall. And that is what the law says we're obligated to do because it hasn't been updated for the 21st century. And we're not obligated to do anything more like knock on doors and ask for consent and things like that. So there's that version of worship of the written word, and the written word as a weapon. There's another version of worship of the written word shows up where in order for something to be true, it has to be correctly documented according to a scientific principle, or according to a scientific method. It has to be studied. And that's not to say that science isn't valuable. I absolutely believe that science is valuable. But a lot of what is missing from that conversation is the way that our current institutions of science are corrupted, are manipulated, are pushed into studying certain things that are likely to be profitable. how the school that does the science work might be funded by a grant from a company that's planning on making money on whatever it is that they discover. And that a lot of the things that aren't likely to be profitable are not likely to be studied. And so things that aren't likely to be studied might not have the correct science behind them, or we might, if it's really important for people of color, specifically in the medical field, it might not be studied at all. Because the way the medical field tends to study things is they assume that white males sort of between the ages of 19 and 40 are the standard body, and everybody else's body is weird and it should act like white men's bodies. And when it doesn't, well, that's too bad. So a lot of other populations just don't get studied. There's a really interesting example of this to me that I heard as a new mother, and it is that largely the scientific community has always assumed that babies grow incrementally over time, that they're kind of constantly growing, and that the reason why mothers feel like their baby got big all of a sudden is that it's just that's the day they noticed. The baby's always growing. And when mothers self-report that it feels like my kid just got so much bigger overnight, well, that's just their perspective, but that can't possibly be true. And that kind of also ties along to, well, that they're probably not having growing pains that particular week, so there's no reason to treat them in a certain way or give them Tylenol. They're just being fussy. Things like there's a real impact behind do babies grow all at once, or do babies grow incrementally over time? And the reason why we know that babies do in fact grow a whole centimeter overnight and then pause for a while is because a new mother who was also a postgraduate or a graduate student decided to study it and decided to do the legwork of not just weighing and measuring babies, every week or two when they would come into the office, but going out into the field and measuring babies every day. And so for that reason, we know that babies do in fact get bigger overnight. And it's crazy. Another good example is in the Tema Okun article, and it has to do with the way that there are very many treaties that the United States does not follow and does not live up to, specifically with Indigenous peoples and with the Native Americans in our country. So it's one of the ways that we can see that this worship of the written word, it's really going to help the people who are in power. And it's not going to help the people who are not in power, who don't have the control. So Tema Okun gives this really great example, and I'll read from her article here. She says, the United States invaded Mexico in 1846 to start what would be known as the Mexican-American War. The war ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo 2 years later, and that treaty transferred over 55% of Mexican land to the United States. This becomes present-day Arizona, California, New Mexico, Texas, parts of Colorado, Nevada, and Utah. That treaty promised to protect the lands, language, and culture of the Mexican people and communities that were already living in the ceded territory. But Congress substituted a protocol which required people of Mexican heritage, read Mexican heritage, to prove legitimate title to their lands in court. Unable to provide proof in a culture that did not record land transactions, the protocol became the legal basis for white settlers to claim rights to and seize lands from Mexicans in these territories. Our history is replete with examples of the theft of land, of bodies, of culture, of skin and blood and ancestry through the manipulation of the written word. So this is definitely one of the many examples of of it's probably not going to save you, but it's more likely to be used as a weapon against you. This particular worship of the written word, I am not sure the degree to which it shows up in our congregation, because we don't do a very good job of writing things down. And we talked about that previously in this series, where if you don't have clear policies, what ends up happening is that the people of color are doing things wrong because there's not a written policy for them to follow. We just interpret that the way that they're doing things is incorrect. So when we write things down, it's used as a weapon. When we don't write things down, it's used as a weapon as well. How are some other ways that this shows up? If it's not in a memo, it doesn't exist. If it's not grammatically correct, it has no value. So if it's not written in the correct language, it has no value. If it's not properly cited according to academic rules that nobody knows, unless you're an academic, then it's not legitimate. An inability or refusal to acknowledge information that is shared through stories, embodied knowing, intuition, and a wide range of ways that we individually and collectively learn and know. So that might mean, well, we don't have the documentation and proof that this person of power has committed sexual assault against anyone. However, there are 40 people who are willing to publicly say that they committed sexual assault against that. So that's a way of saying, well, it's not actually proof, but we can use common sense to know there's something going on there. This also will show up that there's continued frustration that people and communities don't respond to written communication, and blaming people and communities for their failure to respond. So there's this belief that we should be able to write letters, we should be able to ask people to fill out forms and check off surveys, as opposed to doing the actual work of being in community with each other, having conversations, sitting down and talking through things together. People with strong documentation and writing skills are more highly valued, even in organizations where the ability to relate to other people is a key part of the mission. Collectively and generationally informed in a context where systemic racism privileges the writing and wisdom of people in the white group. This also can show up in the ways that the less privileged you are and the less resourced you are, the more you have to document every aspect of your life. That you have to be the person that keeps all the receipts, you have to be the person that fills out all the forms, you have to know when to fill them out. But the wealthier that you are, the less you have to do that. You will almost certainly have someone else who's doing the documentation side of you, but you might not even have to submit or write information about your income information publicly, because you don't ever have to ask for help that requires that you say how much money you make, right? Like you're not filling out forms for WIC or for SNAP benefits. And so you don't have to tell anybody exactly the number of adults living in your house. And you don't have to tell anybody exactly the way that you make money. And you maybe don't have to tell anybody how often you're paid. So that's one of the ways that this kind of burden of paperwork and this burden of documentation is very much on the shoulders of people who are in oppressed communities and who are under-resourced. What are some antidotes to this? Tema Okun recommends that we take the time to analyze how people both inside and outside of the organization get and share information. So that might mean emails or text messages, but it also could mean video. A lot of people get their news not by reading it, but by watching it. It could mean short clips. It could mean posters, right? There's lots of different ways that people get their information. It might be being physically talking to people. Figure out what actually needs to be written down, and come up with alternative ways to document what is happening. Encourage creative ways of documenting or recording or reflecting what you're learning and what you feel you need to know. One of the ways that we do that as a congregation is we don't just have, for our board meetings, we don't just have minutes of the meetings. We also try to record the full meeting for folks who are not going to find reading through the minutes useful or helpful. They prefer to watch. So we have recordings of our board meetings as well. Work to recognize the contributions and skills that every person brings to the organization. Make sure that anything written can be clearly understood. So don't use the kind of legalese and super wordy Robert's Rules of Order, here's how you do things, that is difficult for lay people to understand, right? Develop skills individually and collectively to gather information through different ways of knowing. Identify when circumstances require documentation on others' terms and bring transparency to how you respond. So make a list of the things that are most likely we're going to have to find some kind of legal documentation, funder document, government forms, things like that. Dedicate time and practice to honoring other ways of knowing and expression, such as oral storytelling, embodied learning, visual movement and art, silence, meditation, singing, and dancing. Make sure that you're practicing listening and try to make that the first part of the communication stream. It's not me talking, it's me listening is the first part of communicating and getting to know one another. So our particular culture doesn't value oral traditions or oral storytelling wisdom, so we're out of practice listening. And actually, I have an example of that in my own family. My great grandmother, Grammy, often told a story about how her father was attacked by neighbors in Florida who were in the Klan. And her father would have spoken Polish fluently. He was a Polish immigrant. And so she told this story orally, and most of us at the time it was new information, hadn't really heard, nobody had asked the right questions to elicit this story before. We didn't have any documentation of it. And so it kind of was water under the bridge as far as anybody was concerned. And then there was a newspaper article that listed her father and said what happened. And that kind of actual documentation and the correct kind of documentation really made people think twice about what other things Grammy used to say that were kind of dismissed as a story and not the truth. You know what I mean? Make sure that we acknowledge and honor diverse and interconnected sources of wisdom, especially honor the value of collaborative and collective knowledge. So it's not necessarily something that I'm saying, it's not necessarily my idea, it's work that we're doing together. That's really important, actually. And then lastly, Tema Okun says to appreciate when others learn from and expand on your knowledge in writing. See yourself and position yourself as one person in a stream of knowing and learning. And I interpret this in a way of making sure that even though I don't often know who I need to cite because I read too many things, if I need to make extra effort to make sure that if I'm using the words of a person of color, that I'm citing them. And that's an especially important part of academic work. that the same people tend to get cited over and over and over again, and people of color are often not given credit for the academic work and the intellectual labor that they are doing, and so they don't get cited. So that's a really important way of making sure that we're connecting the knowledge that comes to us with where it needs to go, because it cannot remain just with me. What are some things that you might benefit from either writing down or hearing stories about? What are some wisdoms and some knowings that you have like in your gut that maybe you haven't seen a scientific article written on? What are some ways that you can make sure that your words aren't used as a weapon, or the absence of your words are used as a weapon? I think there's some very interesting and resourceful praxis here. And I think one of the things that I'm most excited about is seeing all of the ways that our community can show learning and knowledge through the arts, through movement, through dance, through sitting together silently, and especially through singing. I hope that you find a good reason to sing this week. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.
Join me in reciting the Widening the Circle of Concern covenant. We, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Oak Cliff, commit ourselves to the study and dismantling of racism and oppression within our congregation. We commit our congregation and ourselves to the work of anti-racism and anti-oppression. We commit ourselves to listening, to learning, and to action. When we fail, we commit ourselves to trying again and again. We covenant to begin this work and to continue until all of us can truly say that we are a beloved community of justice, equity, and compassion. Thank you. This morning's widening moment quote is from the remarkable book Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. Isabel Wilkerson is a winner of numerous literary awards, Pulitzer Prize, National Humanities Medal. She got the National Book Critics Circle Award for nonfiction for her very first book, and has been on the top 10 list. So got all that going for it, right? All of those official written word type things that we kind of referred to in Renee's sermon. But I also know from the conversations that I've read online of people who have delved into the book Cast in particular, that they have been blown away by the insights and the information therein. So today we have a short quote, short passage from Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. This passage is entitled The Unseen Skeleton. We in the developed world are like homeowners who inherited a house on a piece of land that is beautiful on the outside, but whose soil is unstable loam and rock, heaving and contracting over generations. Cracks patched, but the deeper ruptures waved away for decades. centuries even. Many people may rightly say, I had nothing to do with how this all started. I have nothing to do with the sins of the past. My ancestors never attacked indigenous people, never owned slaves. And yes, not one of us was here when this house was built. Our immediate ancestors may have had nothing to do with it, but here we are, the current occupants of a property with stress cracks and bowed walls and fissures built into the foundation. We are the heirs to whatever is right or wrong with it. We did not erect the uneven pillars or joists, but they are ours to deal with now. And any further deterioration is, in fact, on our hands. Like other old houses, America has an unseen skeleton, a caste system that is as central to its operation as are the studs and joists that we cannot see in the physical buildings we call home. Caste is the infrastructure of our divisions. It is the architecture of human hierarchy, the subconscious code of instructions for maintaining, in our case, a 400-year-old social order. Looking at caste is like holding the country's X-ray up to the light. Thank you.
Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place that is so sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. Members, if you are contributing cash towards your pledge, please use the envelope provided and write your name on it. To text your donation, see the number on your order of service, 214-225-5996. For more options, see oakcliffuu.org/donate.
Receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. De tio recibo, a ti te doy, así compartimos y vivimos hoy. Receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. De tio recibo, a ti te doy, así compartimos y vivimos hoy.
May the love that overcomes all differences, that heals all wounds, that puts to flight all fears, that reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us now and always. Amen.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Extinguimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevaremos en el corazón hasta que estemos juntos otra vez.
Our parting words today are by Betts Weinecke. May we leave this place seeking an uncharted and freely chosen way to wholeness, knowing we have companions along the way.